You're listening to Trueheart. Amy and Scott Mallon dive deep with celebrities, mavericks, visionaries, and real-life heroes to find out what sets their souls on fire. Here's Amy and Scott.
Hey guys, welcome back to Trueheart with Amy and Scott Mallon. We have an amazing episode for you today. Don't forget to check us out and subscribe wherever podcasts are found. And you can also join us on YouTube for the full 360 experience.
Yes, and follow us at We Are Trueheart on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter if you want to keep up with all of the social impact work that we're doing. I am so hyped, which you could probably see. I can't stop smiling because today's guest was so amazing.
Gonna learn a lot. It's like a real revelatory. Can I say that word?
Yes, you can.
Experience. You'll
I can't
be
wait
wow,
for you to see this
one
conversation.
Pearl of wisdom after another. Definitely not from me. Maybe some from Amy, but really our guest is incredible and one of those really bright lights that's just so articulate and beautiful and just it's amazing.
Yeah, and ChrisChaun, who you're going to meet, our guest today, he kind of flew into our lives in this magical way through our dear friend Barry Moskowitz, who we love so much, who puts together these beautiful luncheons with the purpose of just connecting people and cultivating community and friendships. And so we're grateful to Barry for bringing ChrisChaun into our lives. But from the moment that we met ChrisChaun, there was just something magical about him. And we know you're going to see it when the conversation starts.
We started this lunch and we're just eating and, you meet a bunch of people you never met before. You have it took about 30 seconds to forget all the superficial shit and just get into these super profound, deep conversations about philosophy and just life. And we're this guy's definitely our speed. So
yeah, it was so refreshing and we're just really excited to share it with you. Today's episode is the Spiritual Concierge, and we're so excited to welcome a new friend to the show. ChrisChaun is an artist, creator, designer, writer, and motivator with a fascinating life that takes him all over the globe. After working in sales for fashion brands Ralph Lauren and Valentino, he created his own ChrisChaun line of luxury handcrafted bow ties. Beyonce wore one of Chris's bow ties during her Run the World Girls performance at the Oprah Winfrey Show's 25th anniversary finale showcase. And Lil' Kim, Fabulous, and Cal Penn have all rocked his designs. Recently, Saks Fifth Avenue hosted a ChrisChaun meet and greet and trunk show at their new Boston men's store. In addition to building his fashion brand, ChrisChaun has begun delving into his life purpose work. ChrisChaun is also a spiritual concierge who supports celebrities, entrepreneurs, and leaders on their journey of self-discovery as a means of self-recovery. So let's get into it with our fabulous conversation with ChrisChaun. So ChrisChaun, thank you for being with us here today on the Trueheart podcast. We had the pleasure of meeting you a few weeks ago from our mutual friend Barry at a beautiful luncheon, and immediately we were just really taken with you because you were someone who's so authentic, and we just dived right in and had this really beautiful, spiritual, deep conversation, which we appreciated. And in the weeks since we've met you, we've actually been quoting your pearls of wisdom to people in our lives who've really benefited from it. So we're just grateful to be seeing your smiling face.
Yeah, now we want to kind of share some of your pearls with everyone else, so they can start putting it in practice in their own lives.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Firstly and foremost, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. It was an honor to meet you. And of course, our great mutual friend, he is just spectacular at what he does. And I was, happy to be invited to the lunch. And it really seemed like it was more about the spiritual food than the physical food on the plate in front of us. And I'm glad that we had the opportunity to connect, and thank you so much for spreading those pearls. We're going to keep, cracking those oysters open and making sure that, people get them.
Well, I appreciate that, but I do have to disagree with you on one respect. I stuffed my face on bread and olive oil for that entire lunch, and it was pretty great. So The spiritual food was really good, but the actual physical food was also amazing.
I was hoping you didn't out the fact that I was stuffing my face with bread too. But I mean, if your friend comes forward, you know, you got to support.
You look like you can handle it.
And it was great to connect with another plant-based person. Like the plant-based peeps of the world have to stick together.
Yeah, I looked over, I was like, lentil soup. Hello.
I know.
I like this guy.
I know.
Strong like bull.
Yes. Vegans of the world unite.
Clean it up. We got to clean it up. Yeah, it's all about optimal self. That's what we're aiming for. It's not to be cute. This isn't a trend. Optimal self.
That's right. It's not a diet. This is a lifestyle.
Exactly.
So
and we're not a part of a cult.
That's right. We're plant-based.
We are plant-based.
Exactly.
Although speaking of cults, we did hear a while back from someone who's not in our lives anymore when they found out that we were vegan. This was like 13 years ago, told us that without joking, with a straight face, that we pray to broccoli, and so we must be brainwashed.
Yes.
And I said,
By
no,
who? By the
we're
tofu.
not praying to broccoli.
Tofu brainwashed
We're
us.
just deciding to be our best selves and be healthy and to care for animals and protect our planet. But if that's the way that you want to see it, okay.
When I started, like I switched my diet. At the beginning, I was pretty aggro about it, and I was like telling everybody, and oh my God, I feel so great. You got to do this. And I just didn't realize it just made people feel really uncomfortable. So now I just realized, hey, look, I do what I do. And like sometimes when you sit down and you're eating a meal with somebody and they're like, oh, you're vegetarian or you're plant-based, whatever. And then they immediately go, oh, okay. Well, I can get, so, and I'm always just like, just get what you want. This is just me. You do you. And it's way better that way. I don't want people I don't know. I think people have had this bad impression of people who've like switched their diet. They think they're going to try and convert you. And it's not about that. It's just, hey, if you want to know about it, I'll tell you. And if you don't, do your thing. That's cool.
Yeah, see, key word was convert. And whenever anyone has a lifestyle that, they're excited about or that they're committed to, what others tend to fear is that sort of backlash that they've experienced with other people, where if they don't live a similar lifestyle, they feel an automatic rejection or a lack of acceptance. And they believe that when you say that this is what I do, that there's going to be some sort of judgment passed, because unfortunately, a lot of people experience that. So, they're probably really believing that you're praying to broccoli. I don't.
Well, I do. Amy doesn't, but as soon as I heard that, I was like, well, I like that idea. So I put a little shrine in my room with some broccoli. After a few days, it started to smell, but I don't care. I just go there.
I mean, whatever makes you the best person you can be, because honestly,
it makes me smelly, and that's okay. But you know what? You can really apply what you're saying to anything, like
it's true.
Political conversations, religious conversations, any kind of lifestyle. Like someone says something and then it's like, oh, everyone freezes, like, oh God, they're like this. So what do I need to do? And, it's just, everyone should just kind of be like, okay, it's okay. I kind of go this way, you go that way, and we can all kind of coexist, and that's okay.
I have found, Chris, that, and Scott actually pointed this out to me, because, sometimes when you're really close to a situation, you can't see it for yourself. And it takes somebody else to say, hey, did you notice this? But I think you're aligned in this same way of living. I cannot be anyone but myself at all times. So if I'm in a situation where I feel like people want me to put up a front and be something that I'm not to make them feel more comfortable, I get really uncomfortable. And I'm like as transparent as saran wrap. I am not a good liar. So if I'm not comfortable or feeling off, you're going to know right away. And, Scott pointed out to me a few months back, he said, you live your truth so freely and passionately and beautifully that he said, I think there's actually some people in my family who are uncomfortable with that, because you freely give your love and express your feelings. For people that don't have that same sort of connection with their emotions and feel comfortable expressing them, they don't know what to do around you. And so, I'm trying to dim my light to make it more comfortable for them. And then in the process, I'm just feeling like in a bad way, like
Right.
headaches, stomach aches, like just feeling uncomfortable because I'm not being true to myself. And I found that that is the only way I can be. I don't want to like flip a switch to make someone else feel good, because no, I should just be able to get to be me and you should be able to just get to be you. And everyone's cool with everyone like vibrating at the frequency that they're at, but you shouldn't have to conform to make other people feel good.
It's so true. And you said the key word, vibrating, because vibrationally we're truly a unit, whether people abide by subdivisions of humanity or of who they identify with or who they accept or who they believe is better than the next group or individual or person with a specific lifestyle or belief system. We vibrate as a unit. And the truth is, when we dim our lights, unfortunately, what happens in that process is those who we have sort of been destined to be impactful to, our sphere of influence, they also lose an opportunity. So it's imperative that in this journey of self discovery as a means of self-recovery, that we abide by our truth, because it really gives people the permission to shine their light as well. And it may be uncomfortable in the beginning, just like anything. And we all have had that experience where you get really uncomfortable with certain things that you've never done before, but you have to not only get the exposure, but then also get the traction before you become familiar. And unfamiliarity can be very uncomfortable for a lot of reasons. So in those kinds of situations, I tend to make sure that I extend that hand of acceptance to someone, and also be as soft as possible in receiving them into the space where I am, to let them know that they're welcome, so long as they bring vibes or I welcome them as they are, but I make sure that those sort of shaky vibes that don't promote a conducive environment aren't allowed through the gates.
So I have this
That makes a
this
lot of
kind of
sense.
when I was talking to Amy about this, I was talking a little bit about emotional intelligence too, because I think that people look at IQ and they think, okay, that's what intelligence is. And sort of more like rational, reasonable intelligence. I can think my way through this. But what's sort of been, I think women tend to be more in touch with this than men, because women just kind of tend to be more in touch with their emotions. So they generally have a higher emotional intelligence than men. Men tend to think their way through it, and it's math, and it's I'm gonna rationalize my way through this, and that's where they make their decisions too. It's like really kind of clear cut. And so I was telling Amy, I was like, you are a rock star when it comes to emotional intelligence. I mean, there's people who are like pretty emotionally intelligent. But Amy's so in touch with like everything she's feeling outside. She picks up on energy in a room and other people's energies and her own energies, and it's just like sometimes really raw for her. But when you're around people who cannot or are not used to doing that, haven't built up that skill set in their in their lifetime, that's where I feel like people start are like kind of uncomfortable, because they don't know how to relate. Someone who's just kind of emotionally intelligent and leads with emotion, also has the IQ, but really leads with emotion. That can be uncomfortable for people who don't lead with emotion, who are just like, I lead with thought and IQ and rationalizations. And that's where I feel like, sometimes people butt heads a little bit, because one person's talking one language, another person's talking another language, and they both just can't connect. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And I it's really important to observe the natural relationship of different parts that produce a whole balance. And I personally believe, through personal experience, that women do have an innate, elevated ability to sort of operate out of an emotional intelligence, and men tend to lean on the very mental side, and the balance is in between, having a good amount of emotional intelligence, and allowing that mental intelligence, to be in the fold, but not to make this, super philosophical about society, but I believe that most of us have had the experience where we realize we don't live in a society where educationally, whether it's public school, private school, that some of the foundational pillars of life are a focus. The principles that we could abide by in order to connect better as human beings, they're not really the focus in school. They're not subjects of focus. They're not ideas that we study. So the emotional intelligence is very important because it's like the foundation of, human connection just as much as mental intelligence is. So, approaching, again, people from the understanding, when you have the emotional intelligence, of the fact that they may not have been exposed to that, because we don't even live in a society that supports teaching emotional intelligence or that observes its significance. It's like, if you have it, you have to keep in mind that it's not something that people may have been exposed to, and that's common. So you extend that empathy and that patience in working with people, because you know that they may be in a space that's raw. And of course, this is a continuation of the conversation. But if you haven't reconciled a lot of matters in your life that impact your emotions, then it's very hard to find a balance in your emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And what I was thinking about is, if you think about life, just the meaning of life, your happiness, your joy is really dependent upon how deeply you connect with other people or other things. It could be animals, the earth, whatever it is. But it's
Right.
the quality and depth of those connections are what really matter in terms of how meaningful your life is. And that's why, having kids is like brings so much meaning to your life, because you connect with them on such a deep level. Having a partner, it ups the ante in terms of what you've experienced in life in terms of depth of connection. So that's why I think this is so interesting, because if you meet somebody and you can't connect with them, it's really valuable to know, like, well, why am I not connecting with this person? What's the hurdle here to really be able to connect with them? Why aren't they connecting with me? And I think if you just even understand these concepts, well, maybe they're leading more from an emotional intelligent place, or maybe they're just leading from a rational thought-based place. That helps you to kind of understand, here's how I need to relate to them.
Right.
And then also, like, well, that's why I think you're so fascinating, is because your approach to these problems is really unique. Like, can you just explain a little bit, like, how you approach, when you are trying to connect with somebody, how you approach it?
Well, I think the most important aspect of connecting with someone is allowing them to introduce themselves in their nature, an unimpeded environment where they can be comfortable to just flow freely, whatever that means for who they are or how you will perceive them. But in order to maintain a position of support that will be effective in connecting with someone, you have to meet them exactly where they are. So whenever I meet someone or whenever I'm working with someone, my goal of support is to allow them to introduce themselves to me in the most organic way possible. There will be times where I'm probably more quiet so that they have more time to speak or they have more time to act, and in a way that's unimpeded when I see that they're kind of pouring out, because sometimes you meet people and they kind of want to pour themselves out. It could be out of nervousness. It could be out of, an anxiousness or, an excitement. But we need to experience that in order to get a feel for who it is that we're trying to connect to, and also where or from which angle in our positioning of support that we need to focus. Because some folks may be very confident, some may not be so confident, some may need a lot of affirmation in their connection to you, and you need to be aware of that. So I believe what's most important is first to remind yourself that you have a goal to be supportive and to be patient in learning how to best support someone. And that's often very possible by giving them time to introduce themselves so that you're not leaning so heavily on your perception of them. Give them a chance to introduce you to who they are, and then you work with that very patiently in order to best connect with them.
I love it.
That's a great point, ChrisChaun, and giving people that space to just show up and be who they are and to support whoever is there to meet you is definitely a beautiful thing. Not a lot of people do that, because I think most people are just waiting to say the next thing that they want to say, and they're not actually listening and in a space of like wanting to receive the other person's message.
Right.
So being able to do that and create that space where people feel safe to be authentically who they are is something that I think most of us need to work on, and realizing that, you know, the world isn't revolving around us, but that, you know, we're a small speck in this beautiful, magnificent universe. And so making that time and space for others just enriches all of our lives.
It takes a lot of maturity, and I think a lot of security in yourself to just be with somebody and not feel like you got to like throw up on them. And just like, you know, oh God, let me impress this person. Let me be funny. You know, there's a second of awkwardness. Let me fill it with my junk. It's more like, I'm okay. I can just sit here and, you know, I can let this person be, and then I can be, and having that space, I think is a beautiful idea. But you just have to, and I think this goes back to something we've said before. We talked about at lunch, and you were hinting at now, which is people kind of have to do the work on themselves. One of the most fundamental flaws of our culture, and it actually kind of makes me angry, is that in school, like nothing like this is ever taught. You know, people aren't taught just as a fundamental right to understand how their mind works, how their emotions work, how to go in and kind of heal traumas, how to connect on an emotional level, on an IQ level with other people, how to develop deep bonds. You know, we're taught math, English, critical thinking, critical writing, science. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I just think it's crazy that like that part is dealt with. You're given those kind of skills, and then go out to life, you know, go figure it out. And that's why you see like really successful attorneys or really successful doctors are absolutely miserable, because they don't have the life skills to be happy. They don't understand any of the stuff. So it doesn't matter how much money you accumulate, how much fame you accumulate. You are ugly on the inside because you have never been taught. And I'm not even blaming. It's not their fault. We don't, as a society, value this enough to say, you know what, we're going to teach our kids this from, you know, a very early age. So they have the skill set to kind of journey in, watch themselves, learn from themselves. I mean, you look at Native Americans, right? One of the most fundamental journeys they had to go through to become an adult is do a vision quest, which you go out for whatever it is, 4 days and 4 nights or however long it is. And you just sit there and you just go in, and you don't eat, you drink water, and that's it. You don't sleep for days until that life's purpose kind of is like blessed on you or whatever. You uncover it. We don't have anything like that. We just, you know, go around, you know, bob around, figure it out, maybe go to college, try some classes, you know, try some different jobs. And you'll get there, you'll figure it out. And it's all bullshit. Like this should be taught as a matter of course to everybody.
And I think that was to Chris's point, you know, at the top of the show, that people just aren't equipped with the skills that they need to deal with themselves. And it's exactly what you're saying as well, Scott, that we're failing kids because we're not teaching them the most fundamental life skills to be successful as a human. Yeah. You know, like studying radio and television broadcasting in college, learning that Marconi invented the radio wave, like that fact has not done anything for me in this life.
Well, you're probably doing it wrong.
But you know what I mean? I wish that they said, Here's how you deal with guys who are trying to sexually harass you on
Yeah.
the job as a radio host.
Right.
Here's how you deal with asking for your worth and negotiating a good salary. Here's how you support yourself financially when you're trying to make ends meet and deal with college debt. Like, none of these things came up in my broadcasting career class, but you know, it's all these like insignificant pieces of information that we're told to like memorize and then regurgitate that don't serve us. But it's all the heart-centered stuff that we're missing. And unless you're raised in a home, you know, by people who care about that enough for their own journeys and to impart that on you, it often takes us until, you know, we're in our 30s or 40s to have that light bulb moment when we say, oh my gosh, I think I do need to dive deep in myself.
Or in the case
as
of your
you're
friend's
doing.
mom who was 80.
Yeah.
Or they never resolved it. You know, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I know, you know, you have this beautiful way of as you had mentioned, like when you do meet someone who has these issues going on, you show that patience, and that's beautiful. But you know, most people don't have that. So it's just trauma meeting trauma. And you know, people like just showing each other their trauma is completely oblivious that they're even doing that. And then they don't connect on any kind of level, and there's friction, or their relationships are super surface level because, you know, one person is on this level, another person's on that level, and it's like, doesn't work out. They don't even know why.
Well, it's hurt people.
Yeah.
So if you've got a society of hurt people running around just hurting people,
which we are,
that's the result. You know, you're stuck in this perpetual cycle. But people that love themselves go out and love other people. So if we spent time doing the work to love ourselves and then vibrate on this frequency of love, then everyone else can't help but to feel that love within themselves and the love around them. And you can feel the energy in the room change. You know, it's like if you have a shitty day and you're really stressed out, but there's that person that comes in and they just radiate this love and this light, and they're so happy, and they come give you that hug. Like, that hug can change your whole day and the way that you see the world, because someone literally just took the love inside of them and they shared it with you. And I've seen that transformational power of love in my life. Like, I know some people think it's like woo woo, but I really believe that love is the most powerful force in the universe. And this is probably the 10th time that I've said it on the show. And I will probably say it every episode because I want people to
it's true.
hear it. I want people to hear it and believe it, because I feel like it's not said enough, you know? And once you experience how the self-love can evolve you and how you can then share that beautiful love with other people, man, things just like change in the most amazing ways.
And there are about 4 things that were 4 topics or 4 ideas that were touched upon that I like have to respond to, because you two just dropped so many gems that I got to get in on this. It's like watching a good match in any sport going on. You want to get in there because you're like, oh no, you're not doing this without me. So
let's volley, baby. Let's volley.
Let's go. Because I see Scott's talent is poking the bear. I'm like, you're gonna wake something up in me on this show.
That's awesome. I totally poke the bear. I poke the bear daily. I don't even know that I'm doing it, but I'm always like needling. I'm needling around.
It's your gift. It's a gift. It's a gift. But
again,
that is authentically.
I don't know if it's a gift with Amy.
Look, Amy is spectacular enough that even if you don't think that you're getting the best reaction out of her, she's good. Is she not sitting next to you? She's fine. She's fine. Yeah.
She's punching me. You don't see her punching me and kicking me though.
But kicking and pinching. So one, self-love is so significant in learning how to love other people. And it's critical in understanding others. Loving self and understanding self is really the heavy lifting that will teach you, so many of the things that you believe you have to go all of these, squiggly roads to figure out about others. 2, you talked about people with trauma meeting where they have an opportunity to introduce themselves and one another for it to be fruitful, and for them to have an experience that feels more positive than the idea of negative. But what happens is, and I've talked to a friend about this, in conversation, they call it, two people will meet, and very often you'll realize that we talk to people who haven't been taught how to listen, and people are really just waiting for their opportunity to be heard. And
Absolutely.
sometimes they say something of significance to you or of significance to the context of your dialogue or the dialogue you thought you were having, until you realize you were kind of alone, because the person, they react, not respond, they react with going in a completely different direction. And you're like, did you hear anything that I said? I mean, you didn't respond to anything that I just said to you. And I said some pretty important stuff. So that often happens with people, and it can be one person being nervous, so they have to keep talking. It can be another person asserting their idea of confidence, so they want to feel bold because they felt reduced in the past, so they have to take control of the conversation. So you have two people just vomiting all over each other. Nothing's really happening but a display of two highly unreconciled people in a space that is a very unhealthy environment for both of them. Then you also, Scott, mentioned, and I want to get this right because I'm trying to comb back through all of this great stuff that we just talked about. You mentioned, and I'm also a big advocate in giving yourself the time that you need to formulate thought. Very often people feel like they have to rush through what they need to say or what they want to say, or they don't feel like it's okay to have a moment of pause to consider what they need to say. Even if it's, just kind of drawing back to say, wait a minute, there was something that you said and I want to speak to that. We become so heavily programmed. See, naturally just comes out. Programming. The reason why we don't experience the support that we truly need as human beings in school is because school is a program. School is not a free flow, it's a program. I personally, and I've talked to so many of my friends about this over the years, I feel that one of and the most foundational lesson or class carved out in a school curriculum needs to be self-discovery. We need to learn about ourselves. We need to learn about our humanity. We need to learn about our health beyond, the idea of a health class. We need to learn how the body really works, the relationship that it really has with food. All of these things are what are going to bring us to an optimal ability, because your health is your wealth. So if you don't know who you are, and that gives you the opportunity to learn other people so that you can be a better singular, piece of the unit, how can you contribute your best? And I've always had that issue with school, and I might as well admit it here. Between my senior and junior year, I was suspended 21 times. And the reason why I was suspended was because never for fighting. It was always because I was considered a habitual offender against the program in school. I didn't respond the way they were used to students responding to directives, to teach not so great day, which they're allowed to have, but they're not allowed to abuse me in the process. And there was just a lot of misplaced. There were so many misplaced ideas in the way that they ran the school. And I just was a kid that I'm not here for it. You can do whatever you want, and I'm going to respond the way that makes sense. So if you're being abusive, I'm going to let you know you're being abusive. If you're being unfair, I'm going to let you know that you're being unfair. If what you said makes absolutely no sense, I'm going to try and discuss making sense of it with you. And they felt overly challenged by me because I was a kid that would raise my hand, pose the difficult question for an adult to answer, in front of a class of teenagers or adolescents. And, I became, that guy, even though most of my teachers and administration loved me. I was just very hard to deal with because I didn't take all of this programming laying down. I was like, this just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm sorry, this is what you're going to get. And of course, I also had an expulsion hearing. That's how bad it was. And I'd never gotten a fight in school.
I love that, ChrisChaun. Like, I would wear those suspensions with a badge of honor because you were just like, look, I'm curious about the world. And if you're going to say some shit to me that doesn't make sense just because you're a few years older, I'm going to challenge it. And I think that rebel spirit is part of what makes you who you are. It's one of your best qualities. And I love that you were just out there, like, challenging the status quo. Like, Scott and I, that's our hope for our kids, right? Like, do the things to keep yourself healthy and safe, but challenge the status quo. Like, don't just accept stuff because we told you. Ask the tough questions. Challenge us as your parents. Like, we're not afraid of that. We welcome that. And it's so special to hear that, as a young kid, you were doing that. And you had the courage to, like, stand up to the program, as you said, and say, like, no, it's not working for me.
Well, it's because schools we were talking about is like a product line. You have to get a kid from A to Z on test scores. Like, they have to, and the higher the test scores are, the certainly in the public system, the more funding you're going to get. You might get other programs. It is what your success as a school is based on, is those scores. Now, obviously, all the things in between that are completely missed. So, you're on a product line. We have to teach you this lesson in math today. We have to teach you this lesson in science today. I have 35 or 40 minutes to do it. If there's somebody in the class who's asking a question that is not completely based on this lesson I have to teach you so you can get a better score on that test, it is a complete and utter distraction, waste of time, and it's negative. Forget about the fact that this is supposed to be education and a school where you're meant to learn and question. And really, in my opinion, the whole point of school, no one remembers any of the dumb fucking facts that they make you memorize and the history. None of it matters. The only thing that you should walk away from school, even as it's set up right now, is that you should be able to learn. You learn how to learn. So I can go pick up a book, or I can go take a job or whatever, and I can, even if I don't know that skill exactly, I can pick it up. I can learn it. I can read about it. I can think critically about it. That is the apex of what schools today are supposed to teach you. They're programmatically teaching you. You can now go out on your own and you can do these things. They don't do it very well, but that's it. But it leaves no room for anybody like you who maybe just questions the program, or questions the lesson, or questions this, or questions. It's just not, there's no time for it. And that is the fundamental flaw with school, that, half of it could be that we're going to teach you how to think critically. Great. Wonderful. But the other half needs to be, and now we're going to question everything. And like you said, which I think is beautiful, is self-discovery. And we're going to teach you about yourself and give you the human skills you need to succeed. Then we're going to give you these critical skills that you need to succeed. But you need both. You really, really need both. School should be teaching you to find yourself. And instead, they're pushing you to abandon yourself. And I think that is an absolutely beautiful way to think about it. That, it's one thing, it's bad enough that it happened to you in school. And I think we all know that happened to us, if we're honest.
Yeah.
So finally get out of school, forget all that, and find yourself, and stop abandoning yourself. Don't let your job force you to abandon yourself. Don't let your personal relationships force you to abandon yourself. As Amy said in the beginning, I think this is really like, this whole episode is encapsulated in this thought. Go find yourself, and do not let things occur in your life. Do not let people in your life. Do not let your life, what you do in your life, never let something happen where you are forced to abandon yourself. If something is forcing you to abandon yourself, it's wrong. And
Yep.
you have to understand that. And that's, and it goes back to what we're talking about with people. You know, when if you're connecting with someone on a deep level, it's most likely because you found them. And
Mhm.
ideally they found you, and you see each other on a deeper level. And that's what it's
Mhm.
all about. So I don't know. To me, that's like, wow, when you were young, we were forced to abandon yourself because school programmatically drills it out of you. And you know, when you get older, that's what you're used to now. You're used to having a boss tell you, you know, treat you like shit, because
Yep.
your teacher treated you like shit, and so that's just the way life is. No, life isn't meant to be like that. They're forcing you to abandon yourself. Recognize that. Find something where you can find yourself. So I don't know. To me,
Mhm.
that's what everything, you know, it all comes down to kind of that. I hate to simplify it because it's way deeper
Mhm.
than that. But
No,
in essence,
it's
that's
very
what we're
true.
saying. Are you still wiping your butt with all that toilet paper you hoarded last year? How's that going for you? Let me introduce you to a new way to clean after you handle your business. Meet Hello Tushy. Tushy is the modern bidet that easily clips to any toilet and installs in just 10 minutes. Starting at just $99, Tushy sprays a precise stream of clean water and washes away all of that literal crap that toilet paper leaves behind. Upgrade your bathroom experience by going to HelloTushy, TUSHY.com. That's HelloTushy.com. Tushy saves the environment and reduces your carbon butt print. Tushy saves you money on toilet paper, and Tushy saves your butt. Go to HelloTushy, that's TUSHY.com. Stop wiping, start washing with Tushy.
This Saves Lives is a ridiculously delicious food brand that gives back. Every single purchase sends life-saving food to a child in need. Co-founders Kristen Bell, Ryan Devlin, Todd Grinnell, and Ravi Patel launched This Saves Lives with a simple motto: buy a bar, feed a child, we eat together. Now with more than just bars, their products contain premium ingredients and are non-GMO, gluten-free, and kosher dairy. Their unique line of kids' products all contain one full serving of fruits and vegetables and are safe for school. To buy their ridiculously delicious snacks, head on over to thisSavesLives.com.
For over a decade, lifestyle brand Half United has been using fashion to feed people all over the world. To break the cycle of generational poverty, the community provides gainful employment to local artisans in vulnerable communities who create their handmade and sustainable products. For every Half United product purchased, 7 meals are given to a child in need. Half United has donated over 1 million meals to date. Shop their beautiful jewelry, teas, handbags, and home accessories at halfunited.com and help fight global hunger.
Say ciao to tradition and hello to your new favorite plant-based Italian bistro in Los Angeles, Brothers Meatballs. Brothers Meatballs was founded by brothers and food industry veterans Mauro and Sergio Corbia, who hail from the Isle of Sardinia, Italy. When they joined forces with second-generation Italian chef Mark Middleman, their self-proclaimed brother from another mother, the concept for Brothers Meatballs was born. Mauro was the founder and creator of Mauro's Cafe inside Fred Siegel, a long-standing LA hotspot. Dissatisfied with the amount of plant-based dining options reminiscent of the home-cooked meals their mother once made, the brothers were determined to create a menu so delicious it would appeal to herbivores and omnivores alike. Inspired by the food Mama so lovingly prepared for Sunday suppers, these meatballs are a modern take on a family classic. All menu items are 100% plant-based and made with Mama's secret ingredient, love. Angelinos can order lunch and dinner Wednesday through Sunday at brothersmeatballs.com.
So we went to Brothers Meatballs a few months ago, and during the pandemic, actually, and we were blown away by how good it was. It's tough sometimes, it's like if you eat plant-based, to find food that is like that good, that yummy, filling, rich, hearty, like Italian subs that like have meatballs and like pesto and cheese, and they're just like gorgeous. I mean, it was so I got 3 of them and I just
But he
saved
didn't
them
eat
for
them all in one day.
No, I
to
tried all
clarify.
3, and then I would just save them for like 2 days because I just keep eating them. It's addictive. It's amazing. If you are in LA, whether you are vegan, vegetarian, meat eater, you gotta go try this place. The subs there are insanely great. And then they also have like pastas, salads, like it's
Eggplant parm, their desserts are incredible.
Yeah.
This raspberry limoncello. We highly recommend everything. I mean, we drive sometimes an hour each way to
true.
pick up the food at Brothers Meatballs because it is that good. So everyone we've recommended it to has been so hyped on this place. So
Yeah.
when you get a chance, check it out.
It's in
Mauro,
Hollywood.
Sergio, and Mark know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
And
They do something to it. I mean, it's like,
we can't do
they're
it at
using-
home.
They're using
I
Impossible.
don't know what they're
for
doing.
the,
It's incredible.
for the sandwiches. We buy Impossible. It doesn't taste anything like what we're making at home. I don't know how they season them or what kind of stuff they're doing to them, but
It's
I mean,
a secret recipe. And I
it's-
love, Mauro told me
it's crazy.
it's mama's love. So it's always
something
about
else.
the love.
It's not just mama's love. There's something they're putting in it because it is so addictive
But
and good.
did you see what I did there? I brought it back to love.
I saw you did that, but I'm just saying it's more than love.
Even if it's a plant-based meatball hoagie, it all comes back to love.
All right.
So go check them out. If you're in Southern California,
if you're in LA, it's worth the drive.
You're welcome.
If you're in Hollywood, you're lucky.
We have to switch gears for a moment because outside of all this beautiful spiritual work that you're doing, not just diving deep within yourself, but also helping others to do the same in their lives, you also have this amazing and fascinating career as a creator and as a fashion designer. And you have the pleasure of dressing the one and only iconic Beyonce in one of your ChrisChaun bow ties. So how did that come to be? Because that's really special.
And I'm glad that I'm here with some folks that I believe will really feel me on this, because when you ask for a backstory, you got to be prepared for a backstory, or don't ask the question. And I don't mean that in terms of, the duration of the answer, but just the significance of the backstory. Because there's an origin to how this happened, and it has a lot to do with me identifying something about self. So the bow tie that she wore has quite a story behind it, and it got its name through that story. And that story was really a moment of self reflection, where I had to look at what I was constantly doing in my life. And at that time, I realized I kept having these visions and these ideas, but I wasn't producing any of them. And I said, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to be here with all of these creative ideas and just moving from one cool thought to the next. Something has to happen. And, after I had produced, these bow tie designs, there was this final bow tie that was supposed to be created in order to close off the collection, because I knew I would just keep going. And it was aptly named Finale. And Finale's role was to close the idea of this grand show in brilliant fashion. And I imagined the bow tie being that closer, in the same regard that Valentino sends a red gown down the runway to signify the close of the show. And I used to work for Valentino, so that was sort of my ode to having worked for Valentino when I was 21. And I said, so I need a grand show closer. I said, but a bow tie is so stiff. It needs life. What is life? I said, life is like movement, it's reflection, it's presence. And I said, so this bow tie can't be like the others, though they were beautiful, they were embellished with crystals and hardware. So this one has to have movement. And that's when I envisioned a bow tie on the neck of a model. And I saw the chains swinging from side to side. And I envisioned a woman. The chains was, swinging side to side as she walked. And I saw that on a black lacquered runway because, of course, these Valentino fashion show videos that I was watching while I worked in the store, I really connected with the couture videos. And Valentino at that time, when I worked for them in about 2006 to 2007, there was like this very dark element in these deep tones to their couture shows. And that seemed to leave an impression on me. But I also realized that I had this love for flowers that I was ready to just express. It's like, okay, I'm a guy. I realized that I love flowers because I even got in trouble for picking them when I was a kid. So, the flowers and the chains, for the movement and the reflection of the hardware, it all came together. And I envisioned that, made the bow tie as a commitment to no longer bypass these creative ideas. And it was called The Death of Dying Dreams, a piece that I wrote about the finale bow tie. I did that in 2010, probably in June. And in May of 2011, the bow tie, by way of Beyonce's, longtime stylist, Ty Hunter, it ended up on Beyonce. It was something that I passed to him as a gift for himself, never imagining that 9 months later, just like a conception and a birth, would end up on Beyonce. But when it did, it was for Oprah's 25th anniversary finale spectacular. So when the show came on, I sat in my room and I watched it from the bed and I cried. And I explained this in a Boston Globe interview, that I didn't cry simply because it was Beyonce. I cried because it took me identifying myself and being comfortable with that, saying, hey, I'm 20 something years old, I'm a grown man by societal standards. And here I am making all these little bow ties. People probably think I'm some kind of a weirdo. You know what I mean? It took me accepting self and celebrating self to have a moment like that prove to me that there's something special carved out and set aside just for me. Had I not gone through that experience, I could not have had that moment. That moment was all about everything that came before it. So the bow tie arrived in that way. I would have to say, as philosophical as people may feel I always am, or spiritual as people may always feel I am, being present, you'll realize that there's a lot of vibration in all the steps in your life. And that is literally how the bow tie arrived to that moment. I had to accept a lot of things about self and really, respond to it. And finale was, the beginning of that for me. And I called it The Death of Dying Dreams. And that was nearly a year before she wore it. It was named, and, it was, I loved on it. It was my favorite tie that ever made. And boom, it all made sense.
Yeah, and I love how it all came full circle. The finale bow tie was in the Oprah finale. So you manifested, this by, as you said, learning to love and celebrate yourself, and then put your creativity out there. And, someone who's a creative icon herself appreciated it enough to say, I want this to be a symbol of me, and share it with the world. So that's amazing. All right, we've got one last question for you. Oh, yes, she wore it well. She looked very fierce in your design. 100%.
It became an iconic moment in fashion, in music, in television. I said, look at the intersection. When you're yourself, you never know where you're going to end up.
Yeah, well, she's amazing. She's one in a million. So that was a beautiful collaboration. All right, we've got one last question for you, ChrisChaun. What do you want your legacy to be?
Having lived authentically enough to have learned what was stored inside of me. And that's the way that I want to be considered. That's the way that I want to be honored, remembered. That's the relationship that I want people to have with the idea of me, being able to look at themselves and say, I believe that something beautiful was done by God, by the universe, and beautiful and complete enough that I have the natural license to explore that and to be that as a means of becoming who I believe I'm destined to be.
That was really beautiful, ChrisChaun. And I have to say, just from my standpoint, like, I loved this conversation. It was
Me
so
too.
amazing. You just like light me up in the best way. I'm going to be thinking about this, for the rest of the week because it was so beautiful, and being reunited with you feels so good, like the song, one of my favorite R&B jams. But I'm so grateful to you for spending this time with Scott and I and sharing your pearls of wisdom and helping people find the tools to kind of unlock their greatness within themselves. So you are just a magical being, and even like through the screen, your love vibrates. We can feel it, and I just love being around that energy. But thank you for being with us today. This was just fabulous.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey everyone, don't forget to subscribe to Trueheart wherever podcasts are found. And if you want to watch the amazing show and see us with our guests, you can go subscribe over at YouTube. I mean, Scott, wow, right? Like, we're going to be talking about this conversation with ChrisChaun for days.
But like I said during the show, the thing I take away from this one is just don't ever do anything in your life or be around people who make you abandon yourself. Instead, be around people who help you go find yourself, and just go find yourself on your own. But that is the key.
And once you do find yourself, be true to yourself.
Right.
Honor who you are.
Don't let anybody either force you or draw you into a situation where you don't feel comfortable. Be confident and secure. And I found myself, now I'm going to be myself.
Yeah, shine your light bright. ChrisChaun is definitely someone who does that.
My light is like a peach Melba. I don't know what's your light.
I love ChrisChaun's energy. I just think it's so beautiful and positive and filled with love. And I'm just so happy because he's just leaving like this perma smile on my face. And this is how I feel like we should all go through life, lighting ourselves up and lighting each other up. So thank you for tuning in today. And we're going to see you next week for another great episode.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.